Welcome to Beyond the Numbers, the podcast where we take the stress out of business finance and break down the numbers in a way that actually makes sense. Today's episode is all about pricing mistakes that are costing you money. If you've ever struggled with knowing what to charge, worried about losing customers if you increased your prices, or felt pressure to discount, this episode is for you. We're going to break down common pricing mistakes, how they impact your business, and some simple strategies to make sure you are pricing for profit. So let's start with some of the most common mistakes I see in business. And trust me, I've made some of these myself. Number one, a really common one is undercharging for your expertise. Your price should reflect value, not just your time. We see this as a really common one as well for business owners when they first start up, when they're trying to achieve a certain price per hour, but actually think about the business that you want to become. Next up is regularly reviewing your pricing costs, looking at inflation and cost rises and making sure your prices rise with them. Number three is trying to compete on price alone. That's a race to the bottom. And this kind of pricing can really kill profit margins. Businesses that can sustain this are like the Costco's. Number four is not charging for extras. We call this scope creep, and it creeps into profits. You need to make sure you price in those add-ons. So how can we combat these? Aim to review your pricing annually, or when significant events like inflation, new services, or market shifts occur. Staying proactive ensures your pricing strategy supports your goals and protects your profits. I want to talk to you about two different pricing mindsets. There's the value mindset and a cost mindset. Now, cost-based pricing is where you look at all the materials, the time, the overheads, and you add a margin. But this ignores the real value customers get from the product or service you're offering. Whereas value-based pricing focuses on that transformation or the benefit customers receive. And so they're willing to pay more if they can see a higher value. Think about coffee. Well, £3.50 for a Starbucks, when perhaps you can make one at home for just 30p. If your pricing only reflects your costs, you're leaving money on the table. Now, one of the worst pricing mistakes is discounting too easily. Many business owners think offering discounts will bring in more customers, but they don't realise how much it eats into profits. So a 10% discount can mean you need 50% more sales just to make the same product. It also sets an expectation. Customers will always expect lower prices, and it also devalues your service. It attracts bargain hunters instead of loyal customers. So, let's work through the numbers to illustrate the dangers of discounting. Right, so let's work through an example of the dangers of discounting. So say we have 10,000 sales, and these are at £100 each. So this means we're bringing in an income of £1 million. Assuming then that the costs of 10,000 units is £60. This means that we have total direct costs of £600,000. So this means we have a gross profit of £400,000. Now, if we look at reducing this sales price by 10%, let's follow this through. So we've got 10,000 units still, but now at £90. So we're bringing in 900,000 of income. The cost of those 10,000 units still stays at £60. So you can see that we've automatically dropped 25% off our gross profit margin. Now, if we compared this, instead of reducing our price by 10%, if we'd actually reduced our sales down by 10% instead. So we would have had 9,000 sales at £100, meaning we've got a turnover of 900,000. Our costs would have been 9,000 at £60, which would have been £540,000 of costs. So you can see here that our gross profit would have been 360,000. So actually by selling less, But at the same price, we're actually achieving a lot better margin than if we'd actually discounted our sales price by 10%. So before you decide to discount, it's definitely worth working through these numbers to make sure you understand the impact on your bottom line. Now, I just want to talk to you a little bit about General Motors and their over-reliance on discounts. General Motors began using heavy discounting incentives and rebates in the 1990s and early 2000s. This was to boost their short-term sales. These included tactics like employee pricing for everyone and significant cashback offers to attract customers. Now, this was really about short-term gains but long-term losses. So whilst these discounts successfully increased unit sales in the short term, they had several damaging effects. The first one was brand devaluation. GM's frequent discounts created a perception that its vehicles were overpriced at full price. Customers began waiting for discounts instead of buying at retail value, undermining the brand's value. It also created profit erosion. The aggressive discounts slashed GM's profit margins, making it difficult to sustain the cost of operations and invest in innovation and quality improvements. It also meant there was customer loyalty issues. Discounts attracted deal seekers rather than loyal customers, leading to inconsistent demand and weakened brand affinity. And the impact on competitors was the opposite. Competitors like Toyota and Honda avoided that heavy reliance on discounts, focusing instead on building value through quality and reliability. And as a result, they strengthened their brands, while GM's reputation and profitability suffered. So key lessons from GM's discounting strategy was that perception of value matters. Discounts can erode perceived value, causing long-term damage to a brand. So how do you set profitable prices? The first thing to think about is, what does our baseline cost look like? Ensure you understand your prices, ensure the prices cover materials, your time, overheads, and also the desired profit you want to make. And then consider using a value-based pricing strategy. Start thinking about charging based on transformation rather than just the input. And finally, test price increases. Even small adjustments can significantly impact your bottom line. So, if your profit margin is 20%, increasing your price by just 10% could increase your profit by 50% without needing more customers. So don't fear raising your prices if you're delivering real value. Your best clients will pay for it. Right, so let's work through an example how increasing your prices can have a huge impact. So imagine you have £100,000 of sales and your costs are 80,000. So that means we've got a profit of 20,000 and a gross profit margin of 20%, which is your 20,000 divided by your 100. Now, if we have a 10% price increase, that means our sales will be 110,000. Our costs will remain the same, which means we've added an extra 10,000 to our profit. And Blue Peter style, the margin on that is 27.3%. This small tweak has boosted profit by an impressive 50% without needing to find any more clients. Now remember, selling to existing clients is also easier than selling to new. And did you know pricing isn't just about numbers? Customers often link price directly with quality, and we touched on this with the GM case. A higher price point can actually position your products or services as a premium, which enhances its perceived value. Even subtle adjustments though, such as pricing something at £99 versus £100, can psychologically influence purchasing decisions. Remember, pricing isn't just maths, it's also behavioural science. We've all heard the dreaded question, why is this so expensive? But that's not a threat, it's an opportunity. Shift the conversation from cost to value. Ask your clients about the outcomes they want and the challenges your product or service solves. Next episode, we're talking about how to make sure you actually get paid on time, working on simple strategies to stop late payments from wrecking your cash flow.